I'd like to introduce us to our guest speaker, Kathleen Fernandez-Colatrella. She is the CEO and founder of Linear System. And I'm not going to tell you a lot about her because I want her to have the floor and share with us today who she is, what she does, how she got to this point. And I've heard part of her story, and I can't wait for her to share it with us here. So take it away, Kathleen, and welcome.
Eneri, thank you so much for inviting me to just come together. I love this group. I love the fact that, people take out the time, that we take out the time to just sort of focus on what's, right in front of us and to think about how I love that verse that you put, iron sharpens iron, that we get to learn from each other.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me. And I'm honored actually to have anybody want to listen to my story. I think it's, I think that there is a plan for all of our lives. And I think that how it unfolds, it matters, and we have to be really attentive to, how are we using our gifts to be able to serve others. I think that as I look back on my life and how I got here, I kind of think that there was a plan in place, and there were the right people and the right circumstances were showing up in order for me to do what I'm doing today. So before I even go into what I do today, I'd just like to give you a quick background on where I come from, my family. Where are we in terms of my family? Where do we live? What do we do as a family? And then how that played into my career and then the business as well. And this is a conversation. So Eneri said we can just, be very informal, and you could ask any questions you like at any point. I'm happy to pause and answer your questions. So I have the pleasure of meeting Eneri in another group session where we were actually speaking to women that were trying to get into the workforce, that they were trying to understand what is it that they can do, what value they bring. And it was just so refreshing to be able to be in that kind of forum with, they were younger women, they were older women as well that were, again, it's through an organization called Renew, and they are a nonprofit, and they just really focused on helping and equipping women that have not had all of the resources necessary to go into the workplace and hold really great jobs and be a great role model for their families. So I love that, and then here you go. Here we're talking again, and I'm retelling my story again. So, Eneri, if it seems repetitive to you, I'm sorry, but I just want to go from the beginning.
No, that's quite all right.
Yeah, I'm one of 5 children. My parents came from the Dominican Republic when they were in the mid-20s. They came with two of my older brothers, but then the rest were born here. I was born here in Hoboken, New Jersey. And it's funny because in any forum that I am talking or dialoguing with anybody, they immediately say, you must be from New York. So my accent must be, I don't see it, but other people see it. They say you must be from New York or in the nearby area. But yes, I was born and raised in Hoboken, New Jersey. Again, my parents are immigrants from the Dominican Republic. We have ancestors that come from Spain as well. And the interesting part about my family life is that even though I was born in this country, my parents kept the traditions of Dominicans very much in our home. We grew up with that. So some of my friends, even now, say, I can't believe how Dominican you are, given the traditions and the things that I like and the music I listen to. So it's refreshing, and I feel like we're doing a disservice to our families if we don't do that, if we don't bring our cultures in and let them know really what our family, why we are the way we are in terms of our approach to things and how we think, and just those beautiful traditions that come forward that they can pass on to their children as well. So with that, in the tradition of Hispanic families, I don't know if it's similar for you folks, but the sons are the ones that are supposed to be most successful, and the daughters just get married, right, and have children. So at least that's how it was in our home, being that they're from a Dominican background. And so it's surprising to my dad that my sister and I both have gone on to college, and my brothers went on to businesses, yes, and they are successful in their businesses, but not giving a whole lot of weight as to what we do, and not having that encouragement from when you're very young that you're going to go to college, you're going to have a career. That's not the focus. The focus is mainly around meeting someone, having children. And it seems very primitive, but it's really not in the Hispanic community. It's still real. They still some believe in that, and I think that we can change that by being role models as to what's possible. So one of five, my sister and I went to Rutgers. I graduated with a pharmacy degree from LIU, Long Island University, and all that time, I've always worked really hard. I worked either in sales, or I worked in anything that I can supplement the income, or not having my parents always give to me, as we do with our children today. They only call, can you Venmo me? And I was like, what is this? We're not a bank. Venmo's not a bank. It's attached to a bank, but it's not your bank account. So it was a little different. So I've always worked really hard. Once I graduated pharmacy school, I spent some time working in Holy Name Hospital as a registered pharmacist. And then after that, I was able to step into the pharmaceutical industry and started working there from entering the pharma industry from the ground up, from the entry-level position as a clinical research associate. So, and just tying in, as I was doing my pharmacy, again, I was working already in the pharmacy, and I was already thinking about how can I gain some experience with the work that I'm eventually going to do. So I was a pharmacy tech in the local pharmacy, and just learning and always wanting to just get ahead very quickly and understand, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. Do I like this? And then once I graduated, I realized that the retail store was not the place for me, that I enjoy more about how medicine, just always asking questions. How do we treat disease? What medicines do we choose? And then soon after I graduated, as I said, I stayed 1 year in the hospital, and then I stepped into the pharma industry. And I started to work on clinical trials. I started to quickly be the go-to person at the pharma industry. Lasted 10 years in pharma. And within those 10 years on the family side, early on, and I shared this with Eneri, and it's a very personal thing, but I think it's important for us to look at the things that we failed at and the things that really made a difference for us. So soon after I graduated pharmacy school, I got married, and again, my family being from a Dominican background, you are supposed to be, sort of go into your marriage very much, pure, and so got married very young to sort of be with the person I thought I loved, and that only lasted a year, and a beautiful wedding and everything. Got married, and it turned out into an early divorce, and we never had children or anything like that, but I learned from that experience that not everything that we think is best for us, you move on with it without knowing, first of all, I was too young to understand what the commitment was of a marriage. So anyway, so I learned from that then that relationships are secret. Relationships, you have to be mature, and you have to know what you're doing before you actually make a commitment like that. So that happened, and then I started working really hard in the pharma company, met someone else, my husband now, we're married, we have 2 children, they're in college, and now we're dealing with the empty nesters kind of season in our lives, which is not an easy one. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but it's not the easiest because you for so many years, your focus is your family, your kids, your life revolves around them, and then they're off to college, and you're left with a void that you can fill in with a lot of things, but also a void to sort of reevaluating yourself as to, are you doing meaningful work? Are you spending your time the way you should? So that's the backstory. So then after working in the pharma industry for about 15 years, I decided that I've learned enough about the industry that maybe I can go out on my own and help several different companies on how to run clinical trials in the way that it makes a difference, in the way that it helps patients. So I started my company, Linea System, as a consulting company. Started just with 2 other folks, 2 other people as a consultant. And originally the idea of starting the company came from 3. There was 3 colleagues of mine that we were going to do this together. They both wind up being, they were expecting and said, we can't do this. We have to go back into the industry and have our insurances. And then I was left alone. I was left alone to start up this company. We've already initiated it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I don't have a partner now. I have to do this by myself because we already had clients. So they went back into the industries, right? That one went back to Novartis and the other one went back to Pfizer. And then I started to figure out, okay, so what is it that I need to be able to fulfill projects and continue? And I started to just focus on hiring women that had been in the industry but left because they were going to take care of their children but wanted to come back into the industry. They were perfect because they were available on demand, right? They were available. If we have projects, then they're available. And I didn't have to hire an entourage of people. And that's one of the things I think that is really important for us to know, that when we're starting a company, that you're very mindful and careful on how you're bringing on employees, because it's a huge expense. So it has to be aligned with the revenue and the projects that you're bringing in order for you to sustain those salaries. So I learned that early on, that we don't have to bring on, tons of people to be able to deliver. If we measure out and we know exactly what we're trying to deliver and how we're trying to do that. So I'm going to pause real quick in case anybody has questions about the background, and then I'll talk a little bit more about what we do now in the business.
No questions from me. I like to take it all in and do it at the end, but if anybody has questions, feel free. Okay, keep going.
Okay, so I started the company thinking that, okay, my 2 colleagues and myself, we're going to start and we're going to make a difference because we're going to help pharma companies do the clinical trials in an efficient, cost-effective way that it can impact the right patients, that patients can look at clinical trials as a way for them to receive excellent care and medication without even having to have insurance. Or, these are patients that don't know much about their disease, but once they get into a clinical trial, they get educated, they get the medication, they get on a cycle, they have to be compliant. So trying to shift the mindset of people thinking that, being in a clinical trial is like being a guinea pig. It's not, because before you get to being in a clinical trial, especially in the latest stages, there's a lot of signals that have to be addressed before it goes into man and the medication goes into man. So we were able to sort of get that story straight and say, look, we're about having pharma identified and select doctors and researchers to be part of their clinical study that can contribute patients in a very smart way, and also educate patients on what is the benefit not only for the patient, but what's the benefit for the rest of the population and people that have diabetes. So I'm in a diabetes study. If I go into a diabetic study and I get to be part of a drug being approved that can help a specific population or a specific group of diabetes, I've made a difference in a tremendous way, not only for my own health, but also for other people that are suffering with the same disease. Now, mind you, I'm a pharmacist and I don't take not one medication because I know too much about the side effects of medications. And I feel that God has equipped our bodies to be able to heal in the way that it should. But because we're not going to perfectly live a life that's aligned and synchronized with the way we're supposed to be living, with our rest, with our sleep, with our food, with our management of stress, there's a need for the medications, right? Because we don't do that. We don't do that the way we should for our bodies to respond and to heal and to maintain itself. So there is a place for the clinical trials, for new drugs to be brought to the market. And now drugs are being researched to be more precise. And it's called precision medicine, so that it can pinpoint exactly where the damage or the disease is, so that it doesn't impact the rest of the body so much with side effects, which I'm excited about, right? Because I think that's one of the reasons why we shy away from either being in clinical trials or taking medications the way we should. So the company Linea System, again, it was started as a consulting company. What we do and what we deliver is that we partner up and we work with the pharmaceutical companies to identify the doctors, the researchers that can support their studies. So pharma hires us if they have a study in diabetes. Kathleen, can Linea find us 50 doctors that you can qualify that have these requirements, that they can support our study and they have access to the patient population that we're looking for. And then we have a database and we have a software that has over 300,000 doctors globally that we can sort, filter, and make them match to the clinical trial requirements. And then for that, the pharma company pays us for every doctor that we find and we qualified and we submit a feasibility to the pharma. That's our business model. And so of late, because there's so much requirements and demand for diversity in clinical trials, we are trying to incorporate into our business model. You need to have diverse patients in your clinical trials because there could be differences on how the medication responds. If you're Hispanic, if you're Black, if you're Asian, for example, Asians are fast acetylators. Acetylators means on how they metabolize certain medications. So a dose that could be okay for me from a Hispanic background could be an overdose or too much of a dose for someone who's Asian, if that drug is metabolized by that mechanism. So there are definitely underrepresented populations in the clinical trials. It may be because, the majority of the patients are white and who we go to, the researchers have access only to white population. There's very little Hispanics in clinical trials. There's very little Blacks, Asian in some areas, in some regions, there are more Asian trials. But now, so the FDA is saying that after we went through all the COVID fiasco and all of the COVID research and clinical trials and everything, everyone's starting to know about what clinical trials are. Even my dad now knows what I do because he heard about clinical trials and he heard about all of that through COVID. So now everybody's following it. Everybody's trying to figure out, okay, so how do we get a drug to market quickly and that it represents the right population so that we can treat patients the way they should be treated with the right dose? And so the FDA is onto that and is requesting. They're not mandating it yet, but they're asking, they put guidances out to pharma that there has to be a certain percentages of Hispanics, Blacks, women, Asians, different populations, elderly in the clinical trials, so that they can do sub-analyses of all of those populations. So our work is important with Linea. I feel like, okay, it's not just for a business, but we're sort of helping identify those researchers that have access to those type of populations so that they can bring those clinical trials to those areas. So if you are in the middle of the country where you live in a remote suburbs, and there are no, nearby hospitals or good clinics or anything like that, you don't really know about clinical trials. So you don't have access to that type of cutting edge care. But if Linea identifies a doctor that we can train that could be a researcher and can bring that study to all the patients in the region, that's a great way to bring. It's a win-win situation for all. The pharma gets to have their data and patients that are in the clinical trials. The doctors get paid for, doing the work and monitoring those patients in the clinical trials, and the patients get the care. They get to learn about their disease. They also get the benefits of contributing to research for other patients as well. So that is our passion, and is why I do what I do. And I think that I get excited about doing the science of it, but the business side of it, guys, is really challenging as well. So if you are a business owner and you're looking, or a startup and you're looking to be an entrepreneur, you have to start understanding some of the key components of the numbers of what your pricing, what's your model going to be. You have to start understanding how do you do business development and all that networking. You have to understand the management of people and the operations of how you're going to execute and what are you going to deliver and how you're going to measure it. So all of those things are things that I'm not really that good at, but they're part of the business. They're part of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So what I found to be extremely helpful in my journey of owning a business is just having mentors, having people around you all the time that if I'm not an expert and I don't do my finances well, I need to have somebody that can then understand that and can meet with me and explain a P&L, explain a balance sheet and understand, our expenses and how do you contribute? How do you write off things? All of that's really important. And the challenge with, I think Linetti had said first, the challenge with all of that is time, right? I want to spend all my time talking to an audience that's going to care about clinical trials and that's going to care about how do we do this better? How do we get patients to benefit from clinical trials? That's what I want to spend all my time on. But I can't, because I also have all of these other components to be able to have to work through. So it's a rewarding experience because there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of creativity on how you're going to do this and who you're going to talk to, how do you set up your story so that it resonates with the people that you're trying to engage. But at the same time, it's also very challenging. And for those of you who are in it already, it's like, crazy. Sometimes days are really crazy. So what I've been finding lately that has been better and better, it's just that I've been learning to sort of, similar to what Eneri was saying before, write them down. I've been journaling a lot, what my thoughts are about a certain situation or how I'm going to present it. If you don't like to write and it's too tasking, you just go to a Google Doc and you go into tools and you say the voice activating. You turn that on and you start talking. And you start talking about your idea. And then it dictates all of everything that you're saying. And so that writer's block doesn't get in the way of your thinking. And then you get a chance to put it aside, and then you go revisit it. And then from there, you could just see the nuggets of information of like where, wow, that resonated with me, could resonate with someone else. So journaling is really, really important and has been a really good tool that I've been using lately to be able to strategize, as Eneri said, and just get my thoughts together before I launch on an idea, or even if I have to think about, should I go to this conference? Is it going to be worthwhile? I start to just talk about, well, who's going to be there? What's the opportunity? Is that a therapeutic area that we want to support? It's oncology. Do we want to focus? All of those things, questions I ask as I'm speaking, and I try to answer them so that I can get a clearer picture as to what is the right thing to do. So I am to answer any questions. I think my story is a little crazy, but it's still an evolving story. Have we 10x our company yet? We have not. But we have staying power. We have big companies like Novartis trusting us with their projects. We have smaller companies that come to us as well and trust us. So the challenge here now, it's the rebuild and sort of kind of figure out exactly how we can bring excellent service, not only to the pharma, but also to the researchers that are involved, and then also to the patients. So that continues to be an evolving story as the mandates become more clear, as people become more trusting of what we do, the clinical studies. And then I'm learning how to pray. I've always, my faith has been always tested and has been in the core of everything that I do. But I'm learning how to pray from the verse Luke 11:9, where it says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find, and knock and it will be open to you." And so I leave you with that, because that is so powerful. That is so powerful if you keep that in mind, because we think that, automatically we're going to get things coming to us, and automatically that we get to receive things that we don't deserve. And then sometimes it's not like that. I think that our faith should drive us to always ask and always ask God, let it be your will, not mine. Am I being, are you searching me so that I keep my intents pure and really of service, or is it my own gain? So that's the story, guys. And like I said, there's so much more I can share, but that is really who Kathleen is and where I'm going with all of this. And I do have to give a shout out to the C12 organization, because they've been instrumental in me shifting my focus from what's our accounts and what's our revenue and what's to okay, so how are we serving? How are we talking to people? How are we sharing with them our faith, and how are we being bold about what we believe and why we do what we do? So that they've been instrumental. And C12, if you don't know C12, they're similar to Vistage. Vistage is a CEO group that provide coaching and counseling and so that sort of strategy, but that's in a secular realm. And then C12 actually puts your faith. Yeah, it's a faith-based organization. Yes.
All right.
So I'm getting bolder and bolder on that. And I'll just share one a simple example. When we usually send out a massive email to wish our clients and everybody we talk to a nice holiday, a Thanksgiving holiday. And this time I actually said, it was a long message, but in the end it said, and of course we have to thank our Heavenly Father that through all things are possible. I got so many messages, and I was like a little nervous about doing that because not everybody is aligned. And then I got messages saying amen, and I share your same sentiments. I was like, wow. People that I never even thought that would think that way. So praise God for that.
Good. So good.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I mean, I could let you keep going, but I want to have the opportunity for our ladies to ask questions. I am, again, floored by your story, and especially what you're doing, and really getting that understanding of what clinical trials are about. I know, like you said, in COVID, like everybody was like, oh, what are clinical trials? And this is what they are paying attention. For me, I can talk to that piece of also feeling, oh, we're just guinea pigs. And so you had to change the mindset of people. And that is huge. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that later, but I want to make sure I open it up for questions. Ladies, feel free. I mean, Kathleen has such an extensive background and just challenges that she has overcome. Definitely resilient. So Lenny, do you want to go first? I see you got off mute. Go ahead.
Sure. I couldn't write fast enough because I'm multitasking here, but
that's okay.
For sharing your story, first of all, your profession seems very intriguing but complicated at the same time. I guess today I've learned a little bit more about what clinical trials are, and how it all affects, the different not cultures but ethnic backgrounds. Right? I had no idea. That was really interesting to find out. First, I don't know if you mentioned this, but how long have you been in your business? I guess you're as an entrepreneur.
So it's been 12 years. We started out as a consulting company back in 2008. Kind of just kept it as a consulting company, small, but it wasn't until 2018 that we relaunched the company as a software company. And that's when we have created the platform and launched at the end of 2018. Yeah.
Fantastic. And where did the name come from?
Good question.
Yeah, so Linea represents, it's an acronym for the things that we represent. And the two other colleagues that were with me, that were going to start the company with me, between the three of us, we said that it should be interesting enough so that people can ask. And then we say, well, it stands for leadership, for integrations, for numbers, for efficiency and alignment. And then that stuck. And still today, people are saying, but what does it mean, and how does it work, and where'd you get the name from? But that's where it came from. Really, it was the coming of the minds together with the three of us that
creative.
It should represent what we say and what we stand for.
Yeah. That is creative. Thank you for that, because a lot of times when we create our own businesses, it's usually attached to our last name or something that kind of tells or represents us. But that definitely represents you. But it was pretty interesting, the name that you chose. So that's why I thought to ask. And then it caught my attention how in the beginning of your story, you obviously there's always rough patches. But I saw your willingness and your determination when you were left by yourself after having people under you, and then they left, and you're like, what am I going to do now? And I'm sure there were fears. Were there any fears that this wasn't going to get off the ground? And how did you get over those fears?
Lenny, there are fears still today. Right. It's an ongoing thing.
Seriously.
Fears still today. And I'm not kidding. I think that you have to have a resolve that I always I like to run. I'm a runner, right? So I like to think about it. When I ran a marathon, and when I was training, the training says you start at 20 miles per week. That's not that hard. Do 2 or 3 miles a day, and then you got to go to 25 to 35 to 40, and then you build up. But when I was running the 2 or 3 miles per day, and thinking about the 26, it was just awful. I didn't enjoy it. It was 2 or 3 miles, and I was just tired. I'm like, God, I'm never going to do this. I'm not. But if I took, forget the 26, I'm just going to think about today. What am I doing today for the training? Then it became enjoyable, became fun. I was asking other people to run with me so they could pace me, and it became fun, and it became more of family, friends. They all knew I was running a marathon because I was asking everybody to run with me so that it could be enjoyable. So it's the same thing. I think of that analogy and that example of experience and place it here, that whenever I get this is too much. There's so many things that I have to put my hands on to do this, I would always find someone that can actually get me through that season of whether there weren't enough sales or there was something that was faulty in how we were delivering. So it's just keeping the faith, not in the monumental problem this company's going to fold. If not, what is it that we need to do today to be able to keep going and to understand that we are delivering value, and keep your eyes focused on that, as opposed to when am I going to be like a $10 million company, right? Or that is very discouraging. So I would say that you just keep yourself focused on how you're delivering value, service, using your gifts. And in every interaction that you have daily, that is an opportunity for you to be able to use your gift and make that person's life a little bit better, not only with your services, but as a result of your interaction with them.
That is
so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I also graduated from LIU and I'm a runner. So maybe we can get you on board on our running team.
Hey, okay, good.
So apropos, right? Right, Lenny is just like, yep, she's speaking your language. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question. Jackie, hi.
Hi, hello all. So this maybe isn't exactly related, but one of my 2024 goals is to do one of those from couch potato to 5K. So Lenny and Kathleen, I might tap you girls on the shoulder for a little help and guidance there.
Anytime, anytime, Jackie. Yes. We'll come out and run with you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kathleen, for sharing. I always love hearing you speak, and your faith is such a beautiful part of who you are, and so integrated in all you do and all you share. So, if I were to just add one thing to everything she said, that, and again, I think all the women that are in this call are from that same ilk, but that faith being the central part to sort of how you operate, where you operate from on a consistent basis, I think is one of the beautiful things about you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right. Next question, ladies.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ramona.
Thank you. I'd like to know, are you currently, Kathleen, are you starting to use, I feel like you said your business is somewhat online. Is that how you get your clients? It's an online company. Are you starting to use AI in how you run your business?
We do use AI. We use AIs for several different things when we're looking. We used to have to map out the disease. So you're a pharma company and you say, okay, you're doing a rare disease that we don't know much about yet. So we'll use AI to get a foundation to know what are the types of patients, where these patients may be, who are the specialists that are treating these types of patients. And then that gives us a foundation to go into our database to see who has the experience. We're not an online company. No, we actually we have a physical space in Parsippany, New Jersey. And before COVID, we were going into the pharma companies and having meetings and dialoguing with teams, clinical research teams in that way. But after COVID, now everyone's spread out and a lot of people still working from home. So then we get to do a lot of things on Microsoft Teams. Like we'll have meetings like this to be able to talk to them. So the way we deliver is that first we do a lot of analytics on who those doctors are. Mm-hmm. And then we get a targeted list. And then based on that, we have medical research analysts that are healthcare professionals that will reach out to those doctors and explain to them the clinical study. And then, but we already know everything about them, that they have the patients, they have the expertise, they have the clinical research experience. They don't know that because this is all the building of our database from, different sources. But, so our medical research analysts are trained to be able to engage those investigators, evaluate them. And then we say, okay, here's Novartis, here's Dr. Smith. he can support your MS trial. And then they would actually work with Dr. Smith to onboard them and so forth. Yeah.
And can you also spell the name of your company?
Yeah, Linea. So it's Linea and then system.
Okay. I have my own talent agency. I specialize in commercials, right? So basically all pharmaceuticals and all that fun stuff that's coming out when, the clients want to start advertising to the patients or within their business. So that's why I'm just curious.
Okay, so we should probably talk, Ramona, because one of the challenges with when we're taking clinical studies to diverse patients, it's even though that researcher has 90% of his client base, of his patient base is Hispanic, it's hard for them to have the proper resources and material to present that study to them. So if there's an agency or if there's a resource that can be provided to these investigators or to these researchers, that would be tremendous for them to be able to get more patients involved in clinical studies without them fearing that something's going to go wrong if they're going to drop an ear or something. That they understand all of the dynamics of what goes into a study before they even get to be part of it. Yeah. So it sounds like you have resources to be able to do that.
Well, I handle more of the commercial side, like when you're, so I have a diverse talent pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So absolutely. I'll have our stuff, I can put my contact information or however, Eneri, you can put your contact information. I'll email you later. Whichever you prefer.
Okay, yeah. You can email the information and I'll assess it and see if there's any synergy that we can help these researchers. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. Anyone else? Next question. We got 5 minutes, so I want to make sure I use it up to ask Kathleen some good questions. And it could be on business. It could be on anything pretty much that she shared with us. Go ahead, Kathleen.
I have a quick question because Ramona brings up a good point. How is everybody feeling about AI? I mean, that there's from our point of view, I feel like it's moving so fast that we don't know what's real anymore. We don't know if it's if the person who's writing it, if there's another person behind it, is it AI or so and there's no regulation or there's no agency that's controlling it or sending standards or what is everybody thinking about that? Because it's the topic of conversation in every meeting I've been.
I personally think it's similar to you explaining to us about the trials, and everyone was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." I kind of think like that's where we're all at with it. Like, "Oh, I don't know," because I don't think there's not like hey, do you know it's in this and it's in that and AI is in here? I have friends in the banking industry. They're like, yeah, we just transferred everything over to AI, and that's the rage. So it depends upon the industry and where it's being used and really, how is it being used, and that type of stuff. It's kind of like a mystery still. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be using it within my industry.
Yeah, I agree with really what both of you said in terms of there's still so many variables around it. Like you get things and you do try to figure out, is that really from a person but I'll say this, I've been using it a good amount in my business from the standpoint of rewriting job ads, editing an email, rewriting a social media post. And I love the fact of the directives that you can give it, make the tone friendly, make it use bullet points, eliminate any personal identifying information or whatever. It really saves an incredible amount of time. If I used to write something, I would have our sales support manager edit for me. I no longer have to have her edit for me. I drop it into, or even if I'm stuck on an idea, I'll drop it into the, Chat GPT and say, add something around whatever the topic is. And even if it's just to help me get started, I found it tremendously useful. But there's the element of, what's real, right?
Yeah, it could be like anything else. It could be a blessing and a curse. And if
Yeah.
used wisely, it could be great. But there's always that opportunity, right, to be used in the wrong way for some nefarious.
So I would advise everyone the way I advise my college children, college age children, that if you tap into it, that's great, but you still have to own the idea and you still have to own what you're doing. So you can't just do a paper and then and tell them to write it for you, and you have you still have to own what it is that you're presenting, or what it is. It can help you and it can accelerate what you're trying to do, but at the same time, you can't let that be your output. And not own it. Yeah.
Thanks, Kathleen, for just sharing your wonderful story, for being so transparent, and for every woman that's here. Thank you. And those that weren't able to make it, but have been pivotal to get these calls week in and week out, and to make them just productive and valuable to each of you. This will be our last call for 2023. And I can't wait for what 2024 has in store for us. Again, thank you all. I hope on every call you walk away just a little more encouraged, just a little more reminded that you've got this. You've got this. You can do it. Your dreams are possible. We do our part. God will do his.
Amen.
So with that, have an amazing week, ladies. Kathleen, thank you again. It was lovely having you in our call.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you.